Hi guys, I'm Erika Page. I'm a contributing editor at VitLife. You also might know me from Living Dappled, a vitiligo blog and lifestyle guide that I started for women with vitiligo a number of years ago. Today I'm really excited to share my vitiligo story with you. I've shared bits and pieces of my life with vitiligo through various articles across the VitLife and Living Dappled, but today I'm here to give you the start to finish story of my journey with vitiligo and also kind of what brought me here to be on the VitLife with you guys today. So first and foremost, if you are looking for my spots, you will not find them, and that's because I actually lost 100% of my skin's pigment to vitiligo, something I never thought would happen, but did. Universal vitiligo is actually classified as losing 85% or more of your skin's pigment to vitiligo. So the fact that I've lost 100% is actually pretty rare. I actually got vitiligo when I was 7 years old. I am in my early 30s now. And my first spot appeared on my spine, although I will tell you that my first spot appeared on my knee because as a kid I couldn't see my spine and never knew that's where my first spot was. My mom's mom, so my grandmother, had vitiligo for most of her life. So when my mom saw the spot, she kind of thought she knew what it was. But we went to a doctor to get a diagnosis, and sure enough, it was vitiligo. We started out using a topical steroid to help with treatment, but my spots were spreading so rapidly that the treatment just wasn't keeping up. And treatment has come a long way since that time. That was many years ago. And we weren't sure that we wanted to risk some of the side effects of treatment at that time. And so we decided not to move forward with treatment in the long term. I have never regretted that decision. I've never even thought twice about it. But that being said, growing up with vitiligo was very, very difficult for me. By the time I was in high school, I was pretty spotted. I remember crying myself to sleep at night. I remember at one point thinking that I didn't really deserve friends because I didn't like me, and I couldn't imagine how anyone else would like me, let alone want to be friends with me. And I was really obsessed with this idea that one day my vitiligo would go away and I would be free from all of this pain. Despite all of that inner pain, I really just kept on a smile for the rest of the world. And tried to hide a lot of what I was going through. I would joke about my skin. I remember my friends outlined my spots with gel pens one day just for fun. So I was able to kind of have these two sides of my life with vitiligo, but I really kept the part where I was struggling to myself. By the time I reached my early 20s, I was mostly depigmented. At that point, my spots were really mostly my natural skin color, if you can imagine. And I had started wearing tanner here and there on some of like the bigger patches where I had lost a lot of pigment. And so at that point, I decided that I was going to start wearing tanner head to toe in order to just be one color or mostly one color, and also get back to the way that I thought I was supposed to look in my mind, because in my head, I was the tan girl that I had been as a child, and I wanted to get back to looking that way. So I started doing spray tans, and I would get a spray tan once or twice a week, head to toe, and two things happened because of that. The first is that I found such a sense of freedom from being able to look the way that I thought I should look in my head, from just getting to choose to be the person that I wanted to be, and then most importantly, just getting to walk down the street and not have anyone stare at me. I felt invisible, and I was so happy to be invisible and just be like a normal person on the street instead of being the person that everyone stared at. And so all of these good feelings were so great that I was addicted to that feeling of happiness that I hadn't had in so long. And because of that, the second thing that happened because of me wearing tanner was that I became addicted to it, and in a very, very unhealthy way. I was obsessed with tanner. I would not leave the house without tanner, and if anything happened that messed up my tan, even in the smallest of ways, I would have a panic attack, I would cry, I would have a meltdown, and it just became a very unhealthy way of living. And so over the next few years, I slowly made a series of changes that helped me get back to a healthier place of living with vitiligo. First, I moved from a spray tan to a self tanner that I could use at home. So just having something that was more flexible with my lifestyle, I didn't have to spend as much time applying tanner every week, made a really big difference. Then I moved to a lighter shade of tanner, which at the time to me felt like I'm revealing myself to everyone, but probably didn't make that big of a change to anyone else. But it was a huge change to me and helped me feel like I was letting go a little bit. And then the last change that I made was a little over a year ago at this point. I was attending a body confidence course, and part of that was getting your picture taken. And I just realized that I didn't want to show up to this class about body confidence and have a picture taken of me wearing tanner, because that didn't seem authentic to the intent of the course, and it was also something that I wanted to do for myself. So I threw away my bottle of tanner, which was terrifying and exciting. I had actually never seen my fully depigmented skin before, because I started wearing tanner before I fully depigmented, and I had probably been fully depigmented for 5 years, but I had never let my tanner fade all the way. So this was the first time that I was really seeing my skin with vitiligo head to toe, and it was different. I showed up to the class, got my picture taken. After that, I thought, I'm sure I'll put tanner back on at some point. And it turns out that day never came. I actually really enjoy being tanner free. Tanner became such a hassle in my life. At one point it was so freeing, but I just got to the point where I was ready to move forward without it. And over the past year or so, I've just been working on accepting this new version of what I look like. I'll be the first to admit that I think that living without spots, being one color again, is easier. But at the same time, I'm still trying to reconcile the fact that I look nothing like I did when I was little. And it's also still difficult to deal with things like the sun, given that I'm so sun sensitive. I bathe in sunscreen all the time, and just little things like that. So even though you can't see my spots, I still feel like I'm on this journey with all of you. And part of that journey has been reaching out to and finding the vitiligo community. I didn't grow up knowing a lot of people, if anyone with vitiligo. And after talking to someone with vitiligo in my early 20s for the first time and having a really heartfelt conversation, it just changed my life. I felt like I wasn't alone for the first time in a very long time. And I realized that that had a lot of power. And at the same time, I was starting to realize that there's not a lot of content. This was 10 years ago. There was not a lot of content out there about vitiligo. And that led me to start Living Dappled, a blog where women could share everyday life about vitiligo, where we could be real and raw and honest about the harder parts, but we could also be strong and empowering and just really lift each other up and help each other get through this day to day. And ever since I came to this realization, I have just been on a mission to tell as many stories about life with vitiligo as possible. I've found that it's healed me to be able to reflect on all of my journeys and kind of make sense of them as I tell my stories. But I've also found from people who read my stories and reach out to me that it's healing for them, because no one wants to feel alone. And knowing that you're on this journey with other people is truly healing. So I'm really excited to be here at the VitLife and be a part of this community. I hope to share a lot more stories with you over the coming months.